Hello and welcome to coverage of the MSEM Masters 2 Sealed League. So today we're going to be watching a match between Gayvery and BluesEclipse. And it looks like both players have turn 1 plays. The Stormshaper Adept from Gayvery, and now Blues is playing Against the Waves. So Against the Waves is one of the unique make cards from MSEM. Because MSEM is a digital magic format, we are able to do things like this like the keyword make, which allows you to create copies of a card and shuffle it into your library. This one, Against the Waves, mills your opponents for 2, but then scales for each copy you have in your graveyard, and since you're shuffling more copies of it into your deck as the game goes on, it's pretty powerful. Meanwhile, on Gayvery's end, this Stormshaper Adept will be triggered by this Dark Bargain, so it's going up to 2 power right now. And Dark Bargain gonna be card neutral for Gayvery right now, and then Gayvery can crack it later for another card. So it's essentially Night's Whisper on an enchantment, and requiring double black technically, which is a really interesting way to side grade it and also give it a lot of other synergies. And the cool part is that so far every single card that we've seen also has seen play in some capacity in the constructed version of MSEM. So this is not just draft chaff, this is a pretty powerful limited format, if I say so myself. So it looks like Blues is just going to play a mountain and then pass. Gayvery's going to crack the Dark Bargain for another card. Of course, Blues passing probably means that they have some sort of tempo card here, because I know there's lots of 2-mana instants in this set. The problem is if Blues is going to be relying on counterspells, the Stormshaper is definitely just going to keep getting under Blues, and even though it only has a 16-turn clock right now, that Autumnal Watch will make it into an 8-turn clock. But yeah, Blues does have the counter magic for it. Gonna Pierce the Storm. So, interestingly, this was a bad play. Oh no, it's gonna... Never mind, I forgot that it also has the counter target spell with converted mana cost X mode. So, Pierce the Storm, because of its utility, is quite strong, because it's good both at the early part of the game, when you can just do a little tax on it, or in the late part of the game where you just have the mana to force them to counter it. Ooh, and an Oracle's Vision coming out from Blues. So it looks like Blues is pretty hard on the mill control. And then looking at Blues' graveyard, that Hate-Driven Arsonist is a card which gets synergy from having stuff in your graveyard. So even though unfortunately the Hate-Driven Arsonist itself was milled, it looks like Blues does have some cards where the symmetrical mill of Oracle's Vision would be useful for. Also milled another Against the Waves. That means the next Against the Waves that Blues casts will mill Gayvery for 6, which is nothing to scoff at. Meanwhile, Gayvery gonna poke Blues for 1 more. Tap 3 for Fate Thief. And Blues does not have the counter magic for it because Gayvery has 1 mana to pay, just assuming that Blues had another Pierce the Storm there. On end, Blues is going to play Consult the Dewdrops. So it's essentially an impulse, but for a non-creature card. Probably is going to be looking for another Against the Waves, or some sort of removal spell if failing that. But yep, it does hit one of the Against the Waves copies, so it's going to be putting Gayvery down to, yikes, 17 cards in library. And yeah, Gayvery's 5-turn clock with this Fate Thief plus Stormshaper Adept, I don't know if that'll be enough versus the mill. Because Gayvery has not been putting on very much pressure onto Blues' life total, and Blues has just been running with that. Okay, Painted Bluffs coming out from Blues. You know, simple fixing for limited, sometimes you just need that. So you're going to generate red with the Painted Bluffs, and then Pyromantic Expertise. Gonna kill the Fate Thief. Gayvery does get to draw a card off of this, and will next turn be able to revive it. So I don't know. I guess, and Blues has 5 cards in hand though, so I feel like Blues might have had a better play there. But I guess Blues' thought is, I just play an Against the Waves plus this Pyromantic Expertise. As long as I can keep the tempo on my side, then Gayvery can't kill me before I mill them out. And yep, is going to play the Against the Waves. Okay, so it turns out I should probably go back to kindergarten or something and get new glasses because I did not read this card properly. It doesn't scale by 2 each time, it scales by 1 for each copy. So Gayvery is going to be milling for 4 instead of 6. So the clock that Blues is presenting is not actually as fast as I thought it was, but it's still quite inevitable and difficult to interact with. It looks like Gayvery might be getting a little bit flooded. Their deck seemed pretty low curve given this Storm Chaser Adept, but right now they're just all lands. So Gayvery gonna revive the... No, it's not gonna revive the... I guess since revive is uncounterable, it's gonna save that. And then, wow, the Speaker of the Iris is really strong. But Gayvery doesn't have anything to abound. Gayvery doesn't have anything that costs less than 4 in their hand. I guess they still get to swing for 4 here, so... But yeah, Speaker of the Iris, you really just don't want to be casting it as a 3-2 haste for 4. The extra value is what makes it insane. Okay, Blue's having this Shifting Morass. Okay, not going to crack the Shifting Morass. Is going to make blue, and then has another Against the Waves. Mill Gayvery for 5. Gayvery's now down to 12 cards in library. Oh, and has another! Mills Gayvery for 6. The next Against the Waves kills Gayvery. Oh, and Blues has the 3rd copy of Against the Waves. Yeah, and that seals the deal. So Blues handily takes game 1. And yeah, Against the Waves as an uncommon is pretty crazy, because this type of like repeatable mill is very strong and limited. But I think more than anything, that speaks to how powerful the set is in general, that you can have something like that at uncommon and have it be internally balanced. Because again, all of these cards are stuff that have, to one extent or another, seen play in the constructed format MSEM, which is meant to emulate Modern. Okay, starting off game 2, and Gayvery immediately starting with one of their rares, Jara Champion. So this is part of a cycle of champions that exist in MSEM. All of them have the clause, they can only attack alone, they're a 1/1 for 1 with a keyword, and they have some way that you can grow them. The ones that have... Jara Champion I think is the one that has seen the least play, but it's certainly no slouch by any means. Meanwhile, Blues opening up with the same way that he did last time, Against the Waves. But, good thing for Gayvery is, one of the cards that Gayvery milled is Awaken the Nav, which gives Gayvery a 5/5 on turn 3. So, this game Gayvery may have the clock that they need to beat Blues, before Blues can get enough Against the Waves to mill them out. Okay, so gonna Dark Bargain, that does trigger the Jara Champion, so it now becomes a 2/2. Oh, and has a Shadowband Console, so... yeah, definitely pumping up the speed on this one. So swings for 2, and next turn we'll be able to swing for 4, and the turn after that swing for 9, unless Blues has some sort of like counter magic they can deploy against the nav. Okay, gonna be playing Watch from Above, mill Gayvery for 2, and Cantrip. Ooh, hopefully Gayvery didn't need either of those lands to be able to play that Awaken the Nav. And Watch from Above is one of the many Coalesce cards from Rail War. So basically, for an exorbitant cost, you can play it from your graveyard, and then you get the sorcery effect, and then it enters the battlefield as a creature with the given stats. So Gayvery gonna play Stormshaper Adept. I'm surprised that Gayvery isn't playing Awaken the Nav. Did Gayvery not realize that they milled it? Or, because this is definitely a shield down moment, because Blues cannot have counter magic up here. But I guess can swing for a nice total of 5 here, or sorry, 6. Oh, but actually other never mind. Always forget the can only attack or block alone clause. So, Jara Champion swings for 3. Yeah, the can only attack or block alone clause is one of the things that's keeping the champions from having some sort of deck building restriction, but they fit well into like controller tempo shells, where you're not going to have that many threats to play anyways, as opposed to aggro. Anyways, Blue's just playing another island and passing. Again, this is definitely the time for Gayvery to start mounting an offensive, because Counter Magic can't deal with what's already resolved. And yep, now Gayvery's going to be playing the Awaken the Nav from their graveyard. But Blues this time does have the Pierce the Storm for it. Going to tax it, and Gayvery doesn't have the mana. Okay, Gayvery going to be swinging for 4 because Storm Shaper gets buffed by the Prowess trigger. Forgot to buff Jara Champion. That was a missed trigger on Gayvery's end. Blues missing a land drop though. So yeah, just going to be swinging with the Jara Champion for 3. And is... Gayvery keeps forgetting to buff up the Jara Champion. Now, Blues has the second copy of Against the Waves, and interestingly, this isn't one of the made copies, which means that Blues does have 2 hard copies of Against the Waves in his deck. Oh, and has one of the copies in his hand as well. Gonna mill Gayvery 4. Gayvery down to 17 cards in library. Has a 2-turn clock on Blues, but will that be enough? Or actually, should have a 2-turn clock on Blues, but has been forgetting to buff up the Jara Champion. So that could actually be really relevant. Gayvery going to be playing Chigao. Importantly, this does buff up the Storm Shaper, so it does give Gayvery a 2-turn clock again, assuming Gayvery has another spell to trigger Prowess next turn. So yeah, going to swing for 4. Does Blues have a bounce spell here? Nope, just going to take it. Blues is dead next turn, unless of course Gayvery doesn't have something else to trigger this Prowess. Or, yeah, Gayvery just remembering to put the counter on Jara. So yeah, so Jara will kill Blues next turn. And main 2, going to be attempting to play the Avatar of Basset. It's going to get Portal Fractured, but Gayvery did name it with Chigao earlier, and since Chigao lets you cast that creature from your graveyard once per turn, Gayvery will be able to cast the Chigao next turn. But will Gayvery get to their next turn? And Against the Waves from Blues, 2 more Against the Waves, and Gayvery's dead. And yeah, Blues concedes, doesn't have a way to deal with this Jara Champion. So, looks like aggro did get there in time. So both of these players are essentially playing just really explosive fast decks, so I think with Blues on the play for Game 3, will Blues be favored by having the early start on the mill, or can Gayvery still, get there by having like an aggressive threat turn 1 like Jara Champion, or something crazy like the earlier Abound creature? So Blues opening up with not an Against the Waves, an Erudite Aspirant. So that's a good 1-drop to chump anything that Gayvery has going on. But ooh, Gayvery has a Jara Champion again turn 1. So having this Erudite Aspirant is really good. But if Gayvery has some way to trigger the life loss on themselves, such as by having like another Dark Bargain, this is going to be a big problem for Blues. And Blues does have the Against the Waves, so you're going to be starting the mill plan right here. And again, one of the cards that Gayvery milled, Blood Frenzy, can be played from the graveyard, and it does lose Gayvery life. So Gayvery can use it to can pay the Kindle cost, make 3 elemental tokens, that also buffs up the... Oh, why is Gayvery attacking in with this Jara Champion? Before anything, does Gayvery... Oh, and Blues is just taking it, not blocking, so Jara Champion does get buffed. Main 2, going to be playing the Cunning Cephalomancer, and the Avatar of Basset. But Blues is going to have the Invalidate for the Avatar of Basset, that's why sequencing is important, kids. So, with that little tax, so Jara Champion is still the main threat that Gayvery has down. And yeah, Blood Frenzy next turn will allow Gayvery to trigger Jara Champion, even if Blues has another creature. Also, I just realized the reason that Gayvery attacked and that Blues didn't block is because Jara Champion has Menace. I once again need to go back to reading school. Blue's just playing an island and passing, once again signaling counter magic, but again, this is a problem with counter magic. It just cannot deal with the resolved creatures. So unless Blues has like a bounce spell or something to keep Gayvery off tempo, I think Blues is going to have a hard time with this. And Gayvery playing an Akema Rager. So now it becomes a 2-1 haste, essentially. So now the question is Gayvery going to attack? So Avery's only going to attack with that Akema Rager. I wonder why. This seems like a bad play on Gayvery's part. Because why not just attack with the Jara champion, which will get in, unless Blues has an instant speed creature maker. Because Blues, I think, is very willing to just trade the Akema Rager, prevent Jara champion from growing, and then buy himself a turn. Because this wizard is not doing anything, just sitting on the battlefield. And in fact, if Blues has 2 spells, Blues can even buff up this wizard into a 3/3 and then have it survive blocking that Akema Rager because of its own prowess. So Blues is going to do it. Yeah, so they block and trade. And Gayvery just passing with 2 mana up. What can Gayvery have? Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that play at all because Gayvery didn't get any damage in and also didn't manage to grow the Jara champion. So didn't advance Gayvery didn't advance her clock in any significant way. Meanwhile, Blues being stuck on 3 lands and no red mana. Ouch. Okay, has a Chigao. That definitely explains the play with that Akema Rager a little bit more. So, Rager's going to come back bigger and better than ever. And Blues isn't even countering this Chigao. So I wonder if Blues just doesn't have a counterspell and just really is all flooded with all red cards at this point. Oh, it actually doesn't even need the Akema Rager. Wants to bring back the Avatar of Basset that was countered earlier. So paying 2 for Blood Frenzy, yep. Gonna kindle it, make 3 1/1 tokens, and because that makes Gayvery lose life as part of the cost, Jara champion grows. This means next turn, if Blues doesn't play a blocker, Gayvery can swing for 4 with either the Elementals or Cunning Cephalomancer, and then the turn after that doesn't have to attack with the champion because Avatar of Basset plus the 4 other creatures ends up being 6 damage, so that's more than the champion. Okay, and on end, Blues is going to mill Gayvery for 2 with the Watch. Oh, this is actually, no, this is a sorcery. This is on Blues' turn. This is going to mill Gayvery for 2 with the Watch from above, so probably Blues top deck this. And paying 2 blue for a Seacash. Interesting that he's playing this on main, probably wants to hit a land. And does in fact hit a land, gets the Shifting Morass. Probably going to sacrifice it to make a mountain. Yup, is sacrificing it for a Swamp Mountain. Wait, can it sacrifice to make a land of 2 types? Oh yeah, it's Swamp and a land of the chosen basic type. Interesting. But I think the important part is the mountain part. So Gayvery going to run out the Avatar of Basset from her graveyard. And then has the Dark Bargain to trigger the Jara champion before it attacks. And also to draw cards, of course. So we're going to swing in with 3 tokens plus Cunning Cephalomancer because it's the same amount of damage as Jara champion, but Gayvery does gain 1 life off of the Cephalomancer's lifelink. Then main 2 paying 3 Barricade Patrol. So this makes another 1/1 token and has a Blood Artist effect of pinging Blues whenever a creature dies. And the Cephalomancer gives me the impression that Gayvery may have a sack outlet. So if Blues doesn't have a blocker or a kill spell here, Gayvery could just untap, attack for a bunch, and then kill Blues with a sack outlet. So I think Blues has to kill the Barricade Patrol, if anything. Yup, and wow, Blues has another make card, Unceasing Flames, is gonna kill the Barricade Patrol. Yeah, Unceasing Flames is essentially the damage version of Against the Waves. It's definitely, for that reason, it's definitely seen a lot more play than Against the Waves because players do have more cards in library than they do life. And Unceasing Flames is also just good interaction versus aggro. And ooh, Blue's saying, I have my own Storm Shaper Adept, thank you very much. And keeping 3 blue mana up. Don't know if this is enough though, because Avery can still attack in for 1, 2, 3, 4. It's okay, so can attack in for a minimum of 6 damage, assuming that Blues blocks one of the creatures with this Storm Shaper Adept. Anyways, Avery gonna crack the Dark Bargain, pay an extra 1 to draw 2 cards in total. Jar Champion grows even buffer. I don't think Avery should play any spells main 1 unless it's just because there's the worry of counterspell, grow the Storm Shaper Adept, have it be able to block without dying. But no, Avery's gonna run out another Dark Bargain. Yep. Okay, Avery's gonna move to combat, attack with everything except the Jar Champion. Again, this is a minimum 6 damage because the Avatar Basset does have Menace. Ooh, but Blues does have Cane Dancer, another powerful rare for blue-red spells. He's gonna flashback the Sea Cache to draw a card, but unfortunately that does exile the Sea Cache so that future copies don't draw more cards. But now Blues can block the Cephalomancer and have the Storm Shaper not die, block one of the tokens and the token doesn't die, and take 5 in total. So Blues, unless Avery has some sort of direct burn, Blues is not dead next turn. Also, Avery forgot another trigger for the Jar Champion. Oh, and Blues has a Barricade Patrol of his own. This might be Blues stabilizing. Okay, on end, Avery's gonna crack the Dark Bargain and does buff up the Jar Champion. Even if Blues blocks with everything, can Blues kill the Jar Champion? Nope, because Blues' creatures only have a total combined power of 5. Blues would need something with prowess to be able to kill the Jar Champion, and even then Blues is trading his entire board. But Avery's just gonna go straight in, attacking with everything except the Jar Champion. So Blues is gonna trade the Storm Shaper and the Human Soldier for these elemental tokens. Cane Dancer will kill the third. Blues ends up taking 2 damage and goes down to 5. But then Avery gets pinged for 2 because of Barricade Patrol. Alright, now, moment of truth. Does Avery have any burn? No, but Avery does have a Fate Thief. And a Veilcross Twins. Interesting. Very powerful to be that repeated card advantage on the sacrifice, plus being able to bring creatures back from your graveyard. And 1/4 is not a bad stat line. And ooh, Blues now has enough mana to cast Watch from Above from his graveyard, coalescing it. Mills Avery for 2. Avery is in a sticky spot, but if Avery attacks with everything, Avery will get in a minimum of 5 damage, because Blues will basically be forced to block Jar Champion with one of the Watch from Aboves. Or I guess Blues could block the Jar Champion with Cane Dancer plus Barricade Patrol, but I think that Blues would prefer to just outright kill it with Barricade Patrol plus Watch from Above. Whoa, Avery tapping all of her own mana. Gonna activate Veilcross Twins, bringing back... Oh, Avery bringing back her own Barricade Patrol. And suddenly the math is difficult, because Blues is gonna be getting pinged for a lot if Blues attempts to block. Oh, and Avery just moving to end. Interesting. I would have thought that Avery would have at least attacked with, like, the Jar Champion or something. Especially since Avery only has 14 cards in library. So, I feel like Avery has to push the issue. Oh, Blues has another Against the Waves. Oh, this is only Blues' second Against the Waves, huh? So, it mills Avery for 3. But now Avery is definitely in the danger zone. Once you get to, like, around 10 cards in library, that's when it becomes a problem. And Avery certainly didn't help things by drawing cards with those Dark Bargains. Also, Avery's only sack outlet right now, Veilcross Twins, forces Avery to draw cards. So even if Avery untaps next turn and then Veilcross Twins a bunch, if Blues has another way to... Oh, Blues does not have another way to mill Avery. So Avery now untaps, can Veilcross Twin can attack, can probably attack in, oh, he's going to activate Veilcross again. Okay, sacrifice the human, ping for 1. Oh, and that was on end. Now, if Avery attacks with everything, Avery can only maximum ping for 3. And if Avery attacks with the Jara champion, Blues will be able to block it. So Avery either needs a few removal spells, some like direct burn right here. And that doesn't seem to bode well. I do think Avery should attack with the Avatar of Basset because of its recursiveness. Because Avery can just attack with Avatar of Basset, force Blues to block it, Blues takes 1, recur it with Chigao. Ooh, and has a frailty. So gonna just try and kill the barricade patrol. But Blue's gonna is gonna portal fracture. So is 1 land off from getting the Wanderlust trigger, so does not get more humans. But does force Avery to pay 2 more, and now Storm Shaper is a 2/2. That is 1 less creature though, which means the combat math becomes actually not much better. Oh, and Avery not attacking with Avatar of Basset? I definitely think that's a mistake. I definitely think Avery should be attacking every turn with this Avatar of Basset. Because if Blues doesn't block, okay, so what? You just wait until end, crack the Avatar of Basset for 1 ping, and then, or like you go main 2, sorry, because you can't do it at end. Go main 2, crack the Avatar of Basset, and then replay it. And then you have a 2-turn clock, essentially. So Blue's gonna Pyromantic Expertise to try and deal 4 damage to the Veilcross Twins and kill it. In response, is Avery going to activate Veilcross Twins? I think Avery can activate Veilcross Twins in response, but I don't think Avery should, because Avery's down to 9 cards in Library. And unless Avery has something in Library that will be very helpful, I don't know. Okay, he's going to sacrifice Veilcross Twins to itself, pings Blues for 1, Blues goes down to 5, and Blues just passes. Blues is so close. If Blues gets like 1 or 2 more mill spells, Avery dies. And here's the Speaker of the Iris. Does Avery have something to abound? And Blues doesn't have the counter magic. Oh, it's just going to abound an Iron Signet. Not very good. Yeah, if there's another creature, then this would be really good for Avery. Okay, finally going to attack, but is only attacking with the Jara champion, and not... I guess as an 8/8, it doesn't die to all 3 of them blocking. So Blues is just going to double block with the Storm Shaper and the Cane Dancer. And then before damage, tear through. That gives it trample. And does Blues have any response? And Blues doesn't. Wow. And with that single combat trick, Avery takes it. 2-1 over Blues. And those are some crazy games. And I'm really glad that that was the first set that I got to commentate for the Sealed League. And I'm sure we'll have very many sets like this in the future, because with a limited environment of this power level, you combine like the power of the power level and consistency of Constructed with the volatility and unique interactions of Limited. So I think that's a really cool combination. So kudos to Cyber Chronometer and Time Spiraled for creating this set. If you want to know more about MSEM Masters 2 or about MSEM as a whole, I will be linking stuff in the description. Until next time, this is Caillou signing out.